If you're someone who wants to be financially free, travel on your own time, live life on your own terms, and not be stuck working in a boring job until you're 65, then this episode is for you. Now, just so you know, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a financial advisor, right? These are just some guidelines that I'm giving you, but at the end of the day, it is up to you to do your research and consult with any professionals in terms of where you should actually put your money and where you want to put your money. But here's the thing, even with professionals, right? At the end of the day, it is your choice. You are in control of your money. You are the person in charge. So do your research. I'm going to give you some guidelines that I follow and that these are my financial order of operations. But it's time for you to get savvy and take control over your life and your finances, okay? Because let's be real, money gives you freedom. I know so many people out there are like, money isn't everything. And don't get me wrong, money is not everything. But trust me, it makes life so much easier. So if you know you're a good person, do not let anyone make you believe that having money is bad and wanting money is bad. If you do it right and on your own terms, money really can give you the freedom that you've always wanted. The problem is that so many people have no idea where to start. Like, do you pay off debt first? Should you start investing in real estate? Should you build your savings account first? There are so many different steps to take, and sometimes it can feel just really overwhelming, which is why a lot of women in particular just get so overwhelmed. They don't want to look at any of this stuff. And then years down the line, they wonder why they're still in credit card debt, or they don't have a ton in savings, or maybe they have money sitting there and they don't really know what they're doing. Like maybe they just threw it into their 401k and they're like, I don't really know what's happening and what I should be doing with my money. That's exactly what I'm actually breaking down today. It's the financial order of operations, a step-by-step roadmap showing you how to go from financially overwhelmed to financially free. And actually, having savings, building wealth, all of that stuff. Because what I see for a lot of people is they start trying to do all of these things at the same time and they're doing each of them terribly. So we're going to go literally in order so that you can set yourself up for success. Now, there are 9 key steps here. Make sure you stay until the very end. Grab a notebook, grab some coffee. Make sure you're writing this down because you really want to make sure that you're doing all of these steps. Okay, let's get into it. Step number 1, figure out your budget. I know that sounds so simple, and I know for some of you that might be really anxiety inducing, right? You don't want to look at your budget and, oh my gosh, a budget is so limiting, right? No, it's not. Look, you really can't build wealth if you don't know where your money is going. It's like saying you want to lose weight and you're just going to guesstimate how much food you're actually eating without having ever tracked anything before. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to track every single tiny little cent for the rest of your life, but having tabs and having a pulse on your money, just the same way that you have a pulse on the food that you're eating, is going to be crucial. And especially at the beginning when you're trying to figure out your finances, it is extremely important to actually realize and figure out how much you're spending and how much is coming in. Because the thing that keeps people from excelling, from saving, from paying off debt is that they're spending more than they're actually bringing in and they don't even realize it. So I want you to actually track your budget for at least 3 months. Now I say 3 months because 1 month, you're not going to really capture the full picture. You may have some expenses that are once every 2 months or once every 3 months. So you really want to track at least 3 months. If you can go a whole year, do a whole year, but at least 3 months to get a better idea of what your honest budget is, not just what the budget that you want to be paying is or that you think that you're paying is. Like, what is your honest budget? I'm talking about those random Starbucks drinks, that random vet fee that you get and you never actually put into your budget, or the random pet toys that you're purchasing, or the bobby pins that you always have to purchase every 6 months because you are prone to losing them, Like, I want you to get really honest. Don't just put the big things like rent or utility bills. Like, I want you to go granular. Those Amazon purchases, average those out. See how much you're actually spending on Amazon every single month. And then how much are you actually earning monthly? I remember when I first got my very first corporate job, for the first year, I never actually knew 1000% how much I was earning. I knew that about like $2,500 to $3,000 was going in my bank account every twice a month, but that was about it. Like, I just didn't really know exactly what the numbers were. I didn't know how much was going into my 401k. I didn't know how much was being taken out for taxes. So take a step back and actually look at those numbers so that you know how much you honestly have to work with. And this will also tell you if you need to find a way to make more money, right? Like the reason that I decided when I was working my corporate job, I was going to work some side hustles is while I was making good money, I wanted to be able to save and pay off my debt even faster, right? So I was like, okay, this is what I'm working with. I only have X amount, like maybe it's $1,000, maybe whatever that looks like for you left over, but I want to pay this off aggressively. I would like to do an extra $2,000 or $3,000 a month. So I'm going to need a side hustle for that. But I would have never seen that if I didn't actually look at my honest budget. Okay, y'all, do I have something exciting for you? Now, I just came out with a brand new free training on exactly how you, yes, you can get started investing in real estate within the next 3 months. Because if you're someone who wants more freedom in your life, the ability to travel the world and do the things that you actually want to do in life, you're going to want to listen up. Trust me. Now, this training is freaking awesome. I literally go in and spill the tea on the number one strategy that is working right now, like literally today in today's market. And I go over how to look at deals and make sure that they actually cash flow and how to set your properties up so that you can run them from anywhere in the world. Like I literally have managed my properties from over 6 different time zones. So if you are stuck in analysis paralysis, you don't know where to start when it comes to real estate investing, but you know that it's something that you want to do in the future, this training is going to be for you. So to check it out, click the link in the show notes or DM me the word hack, like HACK on Instagram, and I will send you the link. Now let's dive back into the show. Now understand this is an ongoing process, right? So sometimes it's very easy to think, okay, well, I did this once. Sure, I'm done. I don't have to look at it again. No, you want to continue to revisit your budget. Even if you've done those initial 3 months, then you're feeling pretty good. You may want to still at least track it quarterly. I still track a lot of my stuff monthly. I'm not doing it like every single day like I used to, but I am tracking both my business expenses and my personal expenses monthly so I can see where my money is going. Key here too is to set up systems so that money is going into certain places automatically, right? So let's say it's for rent. I know for my properties, I have a specific account that is for the mortgage each month. And that goes in there once every single month. I don't have to worry about if there's enough money in that account. It's always getting paid, especially if you have those fixed costs. Try to automate those as much as possible. It's going to make your life so much easier. Now, step number 2 for the financial order of operations is to open a high yield savings account. If your money is sitting in just a regular savings account making like 0.2%, it is literally just sitting there losing money. There are accounts now that will pay you to put your money in them. They'll pay you 3, 4, 5, depending on the time of year. Right now, we're in early 2025. And so interest rates, we're looking at about 3 to 4% interest rates, which is way higher than 0.2%. Okay. But depending on the year, note that with high yield savings accounts, interest rates do fluctuate. So for example, last year, we were looking at 4.5 to 5%. There was a time where it was like close to 6%, which was crazy. But just by putting your money in these accounts, they act as regular savings accounts, and you're making so much more money on it just by letting it sit there. Now, there are so many different platforms that you can use to open high yield savings account. Some of the ones I really like are going to be Ally Bank. That's the one that I use. SoFi is an awesome one. I know so many people use that. A lot of my students use that too. Marcus by Goldman Sachs is also a great one. You can even ask your bank too, do you have a high yield savings account? Make sure to ask them what their interest rates are so that you can compare them to some of these others. Once you've opened up your high yield savings account, this really takes you to step number 3. Now, step number 3 is to build your emergency fund. At first, you're looking at trying to get $3,000 to $5,000 in your account, just $3,000 to $5,000 sitting there in case an emergency happens. Because a lot of the time, too, with certain emergencies, you can't pay for it on a credit card. Okay, so you want to make sure you actually have cash sitting in your high yields of savings account that you can tap into. And once you have $3,000 to $5,000 saved, then you can go into step 4, which we'll go into in just a little bit. Eventually, you're going to want to have a lot more saved in your high yield savings account. In general, I say you don't want to go over $250,000 in your high yield savings account. However, because the FDIC only insures up to $250,000. So let's say a bank goes down and basically you end up losing all your money, right? $250,000 of that is insured. So you'll be able to recoup that back. Anything over that, you won't be able to. Eventually, the goal is to aim for 6 months worth of expenses in your high yield savings account. Now, the only way you can even know what your expenses are is if you went and did step number 1, which was actually figuring out your budget, right? So use that to determine long term, okay, what do I need in my high yield savings account? And once this amount reaches at a minimum $15,000, then you're ready to start looking into house hacking, real estate investing, all of that. But we'll go into that later. Okay, step number 4. Once you have your emergency fund of at least $3,000 to $5,000, this is when it is so critical to go and start aggressively, I mean so aggressively, paying off any bad debt. And by bad, all I mean is over 10%. Now, I really don't want you to necessarily have a negative connotation around this, because at the end of the day, debt really is just a choice to pay something off over time. And a lot of the time when we are paying something off over time, there is some interest accrued there, right? However, anything above 10% is really hard to pay off because you're paying so much in interest, right? It's kind of like built to keep you stuck there. So you want to aggressively, and I mean aggressively, start paying off that high interest debt. So I'm talking those credit cards with like 20%, 20 plus percent APR, auto loans if it's over 10% or, creeping up to that 10%, you're going to want to pay those off. Any personal loans that may be high interest personal loans, you're going to want to pay those off too. And then also, even if you have something where maybe your interest rate is low, but it's just a large payment that's coming out, you may want to just work on getting that paid off too. Because truly, that 20% credit card debt is killing your wealth and killing your ability to get ahead. Now, there are a few different methods you can use to pay off debt. The first one being the snowball method. Now, the snowball method is when you pay off your smallest debt first. So let's say you have 3 different credit cards. One has $5,000 worth of debt, the other has $10,000, and the other has $12,000, right? So you can go ahead and pay off the $5,000 one first, get it out of the way. You're going to feel so good just paying off that one card, and you're going to feel really accomplished. This is where I know like the snowball method is for you, is if you're the kind of person who loves to tick things off of your to-do list, and sometimes you put things on your to-do list that you've already done just so you can tick it off, right? Then you're probably going to want to go with the snowball method, okay? Another method that you can use is the avalanche method. With the avalanche method, you're paying off your high interest rate debt first, right? So let's say you have a card that's 25% interest rate, and then you have another card that's 20% interest rate. You're going to pay off the higher one, the 25% one, off first, because you're losing more money on that one technically than your 20% one, right? You're going to be losing more money on a loan that has a higher interest rate than one that has a lower interest rate. So for efficiency's sake, you may want to pay off the high interest rate one first. But if the high interest rate one is one that has a ton of debt on it and it feels really overwhelming, it may be useful to go back to the snowball method and at least just knock out some of the smaller ones first. Now, another thing that you can do is debt consolidation. Debt consolidation is when you combine multiple different loans into one, usually at a lower interest rate, right? So let's say you have a bunch of different credit cards at 25%, right? And now instead you want to combine all of those and get a loan for it for way lower, like 6% or 7% to pay it off, and have that fixed amount that you have to pay off so that you're not just dying with the interest rate payments on the higher credit card debt. Another thing that you can do with credit cards too is a 0% balance transfer as well, where essentially you take your debt and you put it into a 0% APR credit card. Usually that's for 12 to 18 months, sometimes 21 months. So it gives you some time to pay off your debt without actually accruing interest on that. Just know if you are going to do that, get very aggressive about paying off your debt. This is so, so crucial. And even if you do the debt consolidation, you'll still kind of need to do either the snowball or the avalanche method, where you are aggressively paying off debt in some sort of way. Okay, now step 5, once you've got all of that high interest debt totally paid off, then you can start investing into retirement accounts. Now, the reason I say to pay off credit card debt first before investing into a retirement account is usually with credit card debt, right? You are 25% interest rates on those credit cards. With retirement accounts, usually you're looking at like a 7 to 15% return that you can get on your money. So If you still have credit card debt, you're just losing money. Like you're still losing more money than you would by putting your money into retirement accounts. So this is why it's so important to just get rid of those cards. If you do work for an employer where they provide you with a 401k, start investing into your 401k and invest up to the match. So if, let's say, they give you a 2% match, you invest 2% and they invest 2% or whatever that match looks like for you. I know for me, it was actually a really good match when I used to work in corporate where I would put 2% and they would put 8%. It was pretty crazy. But you just want to go up to the match. And then the rest you're actually going to put into your own Roth IRA that you're going to open up for yourself. I really like Betterment. That's where I keep my Roth IRA. But a Roth IRA is really awesome because you pay taxes on that money before it even goes into account. So the money that's sitting in your account is growing completely tax-free, which is amazing. So you don't have to pay taxes on it when you take it out later down the line. And the reason we want to do this is usually when we're younger, right? We hope, like the goal is for you to be in a lower tax bracket when you're younger versus when you're older. When you're older, you want to be making way more money at that point. So if you put your money into a traditional IRA, then you're going to have to pay way more taxes later down the line versus having just paid it beforehand. Right now in 2025, $7,000 a year is the max you can contribute to a Roth IRA. So the goal is going to be for you to contribute up to the max every single year. Now, step number 6, once you've got your credit cards paid off, like any of that high interest rate that's been looming over you paid off, once you've been matching your 401k, you've got a few $1,000s in there, and you've started investing in your Roth IRA, now you're ready to start looking to house hack. And remember, I always recommend that you have a minimum of $15,000 in your high yield savings account when you do start thinking about house hacking. When I first got started, I had $25,000 in mine. The more you have, the better though, but it is very possible, especially if you're not living in a super like high cost of living area. Like one of my students is literally looking at properties that are $230,000. She doesn't need $100,000 in her bank account in order to buy that property. You know what I mean? Now, what the heck is house hacking? Where have you been? Have you been under a rock? I talk about it all the time. House hacking is my favorite form of real estate investing. I have so many videos and podcast episodes all about house hacking. So make sure to go ahead and check those out. But it's essentially when you buy a property, you live in part of it, and then you rent other parts of it out for additional income so that you can live for free. That income will ideally cover your mortgage or at least cover part of your mortgage so that you can live way more affordably in an area that you want instead of paying rent. Now, the exact amount that you need in your bank account or in your Roth IRA or in your 401k, because you can use those to actually purchase properties, will depend on where you live. If you live in a more high cost of living area, you're going to need a lot more money. If you live in a lower cost of living area, you're going to need a lot less money. I know someone who purchased a property with $5,000 in their bank account. While I don't necessarily recommend this, it is 100% possible, but you don't need hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in your bank account to start house hacking. And the earlier you start house hacking, the better off you're going to be because you're reducing your costs. And that means you have more disposable income now to put into savings, to put away for a rainy day, and to start investing and really grow your money. And if you are looking to get started house hacking, I actually host a free masterclass. You can DM me on Instagram, the words free class, or check the link in the notes, in the captions, or in the show notes. Come to the masterclass. It is such a good time. I will literally teach you all the ins and outs of investing in real estate, house hacking. So come through. We would absolutely love to have you. And just so you know, so many millionaires get started by house hacking. Like that is so many people's stories in terms of their entryway and their gateway to really figuring out financial freedom. And it was mine too. Okay, now step number 7, you are now ready to invest in a bridge account. Now, I always recommend doing a bridge account because you can actually access this money before retirement versus if you're putting it in like a 401k or a Roth IRA. Those you get penalized if you do tap into them before retirement. However, I have a whole podcast episode that talks about how to actually tap into retirement funds to purchase your first investment property and stuff like that, penalty free. So make sure to go ahead and check that one out. But bridge accounts are amazing because at the end of the day, we're not trying to retire at 59 and a half years old, right? We would like to retire a lot earlier than that. Like I'm 30 years old, and if I wanted to, I could technically retire now, but I am such a go-getter and I cannot sit still. So I think I'll probably be working for a while, but the great thing is I get to choose how I do it. That being said, the beauty of a bridge account is you can actually tap into the money that you're putting and you're investing before 59 and a half years old. Now, for opening up a bridge account, you can either go to traditional brokerages like Fidelity, or you could open something up with public.com, which is a really great platform as well. Now, when you open a brokerage account or when you open a bridge account, you're going to want to invest in index funds and ETFs. ETFs stand for exchange traded funds. Now, both index funds and ETFs are actually extremely similar. The only difference is basically how you buy the shares and just their flexibility. Now, we're not going to dive into what each index fund is or what each ETF is, but I am going to give you a few top ones that you can invest in, okay? Now, VOO is a great one. That is the Vanguard S&P 500. It has gone up consistently for like the last 80 or so years, since the 50s. It basically just tracks the performance of the 500 largest US companies, and the returns are based off of that. That's why it's like such a good tried and true fund to invest in. Now, QQQ is another great one. That one's the NASDAQ 100. Basically, it's the best 100 tech stocks. So the best 100 tech companies are like the largest non-financial companies. So in general, just a really, really good, solid option in terms of where to put your money. So some other really good ones are going to be your VTI, VGT, Moat. But once again, you have to do your research and decide for you which one of these you want to put it into. I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. This is just where I would personally put my money. Now, on to step 8. Step 8 is to keep buying investment properties and keep investing in general, all right? So keep investing in your bridge account. Keep maxing out your 401k, keep maxing out your Roth IRA, keep investing and keep buying investment properties too. A really easy way to stack up properties is to literally just buy one property a year for 5 years or one property a year for 10 years and keep moving. And yes, it does get a little tiring moving sometimes, but it also will get to a point where you have enough money saved up that you can actually go and buy a property for more money, like maybe putting more money down or doing the BRRRR method, because you've already created this solid financial base for yourself. Because while one rental property is great, building a portfolio is where the real wealth lies. And you want to be sitting on these properties as long-term plays so that you can either sell them later down the line, or you can up-level them into bigger and better properties or more efficient properties. But these are going to be the basic blocks of your wealth building strategy. Now, I always recommend focusing on cash flowing properties at the very beginning. If you don't have a big financial base, right? Try and focus on cash flowing properties, because that's going to allow you to hold the properties for much longer. However, later down the line, you're going to get to the point where you're probably going to start investing more for appreciation and less so for cash flow. But I always still love properties that cash flow because it just allows you to keep them for longer. And we love things that pay for themselves. And then step 9 is to pay off any of those low interest debts that you have. So if you've got student loan debt, or you've got some, low 3%, 2%, if it's a mortgage, right? Like a mortgage at 4 or 5%, you probably don't have to pay that off right away, right? That would be the last thing I'd look at paying off. But the cool thing too is for some of that debt, for example, for properties, you may not even have to pay it off, right? Like you may be able to sell the property and then upgrade into a bigger property, right? So that's why I always say especially when it comes to mortgages and things like that, pay those off last. And even when it comes to student loans and stuff, if your monthly payment isn't super high, you can actually wait to pay that off, buy a property, right, that covers that payment. So it allows you to pay it off even faster. And that way you're also building wealth and you're not just starting off at zero trying to pay off all of your student loans right off the bat from the beginning. Okay, so those are it. Those are my 9 steps, the key to financial freedom. Follow those steps. Trust me, you cannot go wrong. This is the exact roadmap that I follow to build wealth, and I'm constantly still following. Like I'm always upgrading, always buying more properties, always putting more money into my retirement accounts and into my investment accounts and getting fun and creative with them. But this is really what allows me to have freedom, travel the world, not be worried, okay? The biggest mistake that a lot of people make is by skipping these steps and trying to do every single thing all at once and doing none of them well. But if you follow these steps, you will, I assure you, get out of debt, you will build wealth, and you will create a life of financial freedom that you want. Now, maybe you've been taking notes, but if you actually want this in checklist form, I've actually created a checklist for you, like a PDF checklist that you can either print off or put on your desktop, and I will literally give it to you for free. All I ask is that you leave a review in Apple Podcasts or in Spotify and share this with someone. Just send me a screenshot showing me that you've left a review and shared it with someone, and I will actually personally send you this PDF, this checklist for free so that you can have it up, see it every single day, and go through and check things off. Because trust me, if you're a to-do list lady like I am, it's going to feel really satisfying. Okay, that's all I have for you, fam. Go out there and live your wildest dreams. Thank you so much for listening to Wanderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.